Hi, welcome to my channel. I am Dr. Sridhar Kalyanasundaram, consultant neonatologist. We have had 3 videos so far in the oxygen series. The first one was on oxygenation, the second one was on monitoring of the oxygen, and the third video was on oxygen toxicity and the antioxidant system. In the current video, we will be discussing the current evidence related to what oxygen levels we should use in the labor room in terms of the oxygen delivery and the recommendations based on the same. So this is a talk on oxygen in the delivery room, and as I said, we will review the literature in relation to the same. So we have discussed oxygen in detail, but we will discuss the story of oxygen in medicine so far. So it's very interesting that oxygen was discovered as a gas in 1774. We all know that Joseph Priestley was the one who discovered it. And in 1780, just about 6 years since it was discovered, it was used by Chausier in newborn infants. In 1942, oxygen use was shown to reduce periodic breathing in Michigan, and the same year it was shown in Boston that subcyanotic hypoxia led to liberal use of oxygen. So it was shown that you don't need cyanosis to have hypoxia, and this led to liberal use. In 1948 to 1953, this liberal use of oxygen was shown to have a significantly rising rate of retinopathy of prematurity. In 1954, an observational study showed that a lower level of oxygen, which was less than 40%, almost eliminated retinopathy of prematurity. Remember that we are talking in those days of 28 or 30 weekers. We didn't have the extreme premature baby surviving in those days. In 1960, retinopathy was decreased, but because people became overzealous with lowering the oxygen use, death from hyaline membrane disease increased. So these are lessons that we have to learn from history. And Professor Bill Silverman, most of us have heard about him. He's an extremely reputed figure, and he was the one to point out in his editorial that lessons from history should be learned on use of oxygen and how we should avoid mistakes in the future. There have been many important contributors in the field, and we are lucky to have Professor Ola Sogsted's talk on the channel as well, and we have Professor Lisa Askey. I'll be mentioning about the oxygen saturation target meta-analysis, collaborative meta-analysis in the following up. So Vento and Sogsted produced a number of studies on oxygen, especially in the labor room, and Professor Carlo was involved in multiple studies as well. So in the early 1950s, this epidemic of blindness was noted, and clinical trials in the 1950s confirmed that restricting oxygen reduced the risk of retrodental fibroplasia or retinopathy of prematurity. So as I mentioned, for each case of retinopathy prevented by oxygen restriction, about 16 infants died or had cerebral palsy, which was not acceptable as well. So we have restricted versus liberal oxygen exposure for preventing mortality, and this was a meta-analysis by Askey and Henderson Smart, and they looked at the studies in this period in question. So we have the effect on retinopathy of prematurity, which was obviously significantly lower in the restricted oxygen use. However, the mortality was higher in the restricted oxygen group. So over the past 30 years or so, more awareness has come up of the need to regulate oxygen delivery and monitor saturation and other measures of oxygenation closely. We have blenders, which are devices to exactly mix the air and oxygen to deliver the desired fraction or FiO2, and this has become an essential tool, and the NRP guidelines incorporate blenders, and there is no room for resuscitation of babies without blenders unless you are in a very resource depleted circumstance. We will review delivery room oxygenation in the rest of this talk and oxygen saturation in the NICU in the next video. So what has been the approach in the delivery room management? So before 1998, 100% oxygen was used quite liberally. So I trained in neonatology in that phase, and obviously we have used 100% oxygen to start with in any baby who needed IPPV. We didn't have the TP's devices, so we used the bag and mask with the reservoir bag in most of the cases, or the anesthesia bag in some situations. In 1998, the WHO recommended an oxygen of 21% can be used, and this is based on Professor Ola as well as Ramji's study from India as well. And the ILCOR guidelines in 2010 recommended 21% for term neonates, as further studies confirmed the effect. The NRP update has confirmed the same as well. So this is a very clear indication. So we have studies from 1993 and 2003 by Ramji, Ola Saugstad study in 1998, and Max Vento study in 2003. So you can see very clearly that mortality is reduced significantly. The forest plot diamond is to the left, which is favoring room air. So the ILCOR meta-analysis in 2018 included 1,469 neonates with 7 randomized controlled or quasi-randomized controlled studies. There was a 27% survival benefit in the room air group. There was 1 additional survivor for every 22 infants receiving room air instead of 100% oxygen, which is a big advantage, and it's a significant cost saving as well, considering that oxygen costs money. There is no difference in the short-term and long-term neurological outcome, and 250,000 lives would be saved globally each year by air resuscitation. So this is a big boon, as room air is readily available everywhere, and it is shown as a beneficial one. Of course, you do need oxygen to be available in any situation, but don't panic if you don't have oxygen, is a message. So the target range has been published by many guidelines, including the ILCOR guidelines and the American Academy NRP guidelines. We have the targeted pre-ductal saturation after birth, and in the NRP guidelines it's mentioned as a range at 1 minute of 60 to 65%, 2 minutes of 65 to 70%, 3 minutes of 70 to 75%, 4 minutes is 75 to 80, and by 5 minutes majority of the babies reach 80 to 85%. And the target of more than 85% is only expected by 10 minutes. So this is important that we don't overdo oxygenation. So the NRP 2015 guidelines update recommended to use room air for term babies, and for preterm babies the recommendation was to start with room air to 0.3 FiO2, and it suggested not to use more than 0.65 of FiO2. The change of FiO2 to reflect normal term baby saturation levels, as we discussed here, and if the baby had a heart rate less than 60 despite adequate ventilation, which would mean an indication for chest compression, we should start going into 100% oxygen, because you can't satisfactorily monitor the oxygen levels with pulse oximetry in this situation. So careful consideration is needed in babies less than 28 weeks. We should need at least 30% of oxygen, and 28 to 32 weeks you could consider 21 to 30%. Majority would use 30% in this group as well. However, you can titrate down quickly if the baby is stable, and in more than 32 weeks we could consider room air resuscitation, as majority of these babies do not need active resuscitation and they are in relatively good condition at birth. It's very important to remember that hyperoxia and the oxidative stress happens pretty early if you give very high levels of oxygen, and the lower the dose delivered, it's going to be more beneficial. So you can look at the factors affecting the response to resuscitation in preterm babies. Different parameters are discussed here. So it has been well known that there is a tendency to close glottis and epiglottis in the extreme preterm babies, and oxygen has a beneficial role. So we should thank Professor Satyen for his wonderful illustration. So 100% oxygen or a higher level of oxygen might be more beneficial in opening the glottis and improving the ventilation. So starting with relatively higher oxygen might help you get the lungs open up in these babies where it is closed. And there has been demonstration, as we will discuss in the further slides, like a low saturation and heart rate at 5 minutes increases the risk of IVH and death. This was a result of the Torpedo study. So the premature babies have immature fluid-filled lungs, which is still in the canalicular stage. There is also surfactant deficiency, and the pulmonary vascular smooth muscle is less responsive to oxygen, endogenous nitric oxide and other vasodilators. So all these factors combined together lead to poor pulmonary transition and respiratory failure. There is also need for higher pressures due to the poor compliance and the surfactant deficiency. The low alveolar PaO2 resulting from this situation, the poor air entry, the need for higher pressures and the air leak around the mask leads to further pulmonary vasoconstriction and hypoxia. this leads to more time needed to reach the situation. So because oxygen is a vasodilator, because oxygen has a role in glottis opening, it makes sense that you give a little more oxygen to the premature babies when you start resuscitation. So the Torpedo study was the targeted oxygen in resuscitation of preterm infants, and it was a randomized clinical trial. The study was not completed. There was limited enrollment and early termination, mainly because of the side effects noted in the extreme preterm babies. So we had in the room air group 22% deaths compared to 6% deaths in the 100% oxygen group. So this study compared room air versus 100% oxygen. So this was statistically significant. So the study was stopped early. In the more than 28-week group, it was not statistically significant. There was a comment that the extreme preterm losses in the room air group are significantly higher than otherwise noted in other units. However, this is difficult to look into now. So the saturation targets according to the NRP was what we discussed. So at 5 minutes, we need 80 to 85%. And babies with saturation less than 80% at 5 minutes had a lower heart rate by 8 beats per minute or less. So a summary of all the studies which have looked at the labor room resuscitation shows that the saturation less than 80% resulted in a significant mean difference in heart rate. And babies with saturation less than 80% at 5 minutes were more likely to die as well. So here we show the odds ratio was significantly tilted to the babies who received greater than 80% oxygen for survival. So we have this diagram which illustrates the various predicaments we have. So the initial oxygen, if it is less than 0.3 versus more than 0.6, there was no difference in mortality or neurodevelopmental outcome. However, if the 5-minute preductal saturation was less than 80% versus more than 80%, we found increased death, a reduced heart rate at 5 minutes, increased risk of intraventricular hemorrhage, and poorer cognitive scores. So we know that to get this, we may need to use a slightly higher oxygen, but whether 100% is the real correlate as the Torpedo 1 study did, or we can go for an intermediate target is a question. So the knowledge gap we have is how much oxygen titration and saturation targeting compared to constant oxygen of 100%. So the initial use of 0.3 to 0.6 FiO2 is probably the right way to go. And we should look at the outcome of 32 to 36 weeks gestation as well, and the impact of newer resuscitation practices like delayed cord clamping on oxygenation. So the Torpedo 2 study, which is the Torpedo 30-60 study, where they compare 30% oxygen versus 60% oxygen. So in the initial Torpedo study, both the targets were probably not what we would use clinically in preterm babies. So we wouldn't start with room air in the preterm babies with the current knowledge, at least the extreme preterm ones. And we wouldn't go for 100% as well because we want an intermediate level. The titrating is used, but at the same time starting with either 30 or 60 would make sense. And in the Torpedo study, it showed that majority of the babies had a similar saturation by the FiO2 by 5 to 7 minutes as they gradually titrated it according to the saturation. So the plan for this study is to start with the randomization, initial FiO2 0.6 or 0.3, and the saturation targeting is similar until NICU admission, and the primary outcome is survival free from major brain injury, and secondary outcomes including BPD, ROP, NEC, PDA, sepsis, and mortality at discharge. The long-term outcome will be studied as well. So that is something that we will wait for the results with bated breath, and I'm sure it would guide us more. The answer is probably going to be you start with 30 to 60%. So the American Heart Association focused update on neonatal resuscitation published in 2019 concluded that initial use of oxygen in newborns receiving respiratory support at birth remains consistent with the 2015 AHA resuscitation guidelines. In the term and late preterm babies more than 35 weeks, the initial use of room air is reasonable, and the initial use of 100% oxygen is not recommended. And in the preterm babies less than 35 weeks, starting with 21 to 30% oxygen with subsequent targeted titration is reasonable. So this is what we are aiming for, and as I said, in babies under 30 weeks probably would go with 30%. In 30 to 32 weeks you can make a clinical call on that, maybe start with 25 to 30%, and in babies over 32 weeks I think it's safe enough to go with room air and titrate accordingly. The most important point here is that we should be well prepared in the labor room. The team should be well briefed on what to expect, how to increase or titrate. The saturation probes should be attached as recommended, that you switch on the monitor and keep it ready, but plug in the probe to the monitor after the probe is on the baby. The pre-ductal saturations are the ones to target. We still have uncertainty about the impact of changes in the umbilical cord management. The impact of change in oxygen saturation monitoring and targeted titration of inspired oxygen, the effects of the intermediate initial inspired FiO2 concentration. So the study I mentioned, which is going to be done, would guide us, and whether a single initial oxygen concentration is optimal for babies with varied pathologies, and the impact of lower initial oxygen use on neurodevelopmental outcomes. So this is an important area as well, because hypoxia can have an impact on the brain. So thank you for watching this. I hope it is useful, and I request you to share, and if you have not subscribed, do subscribe and turn on the notifications as well, so you'll be intimated when the next video on oxygen toxicity and oxygen saturation targets come up. Sorry, the oxygen toxicity is a preceding video, and the targets are the next video. So I hope you will share as well and encourage your colleagues to subscribe. Thank you.